Hello, my name is John Cagle, and this is my presentation. So, I believe that the argument I picked is highlighting perspectives associated with holding institutions of higher education accountable and making them take responsibility for their actions. I'm holding the college responsible who should also hold themselves accountable. I am not in favor of demonizing the students whom these colleges are supposed to serve, because at the beginning of this pandemic, nobody had answers for what was happening. Highest authority in our country, the CDC, had little disease expertise and research on what was going on with COVID-19 and how to prevent it. Almost 9 months into this pandemic, and the negative impact can definitely be seen affecting students on college campuses, and I don't mean health-wise. I think that the failure of colleges to hold each other accountable has come at a great cost of the well-being of the student. And while they shift their focus on what they deem as unscrupulous behavior by the student, I think that it is the college who needs to be responsible here when administering rules and regulations. I do think that we certainly should hold our peers accountable for their actions that impact society. When it comes to students using social media to shame others, I think it's well within their rights as users of technology because they are doing it legally. On the other hand, to what extent are we to hold our peers accountable? Is this too extreme? I think that it is taking advantage of the freedoms and liberties granted to us by the U.S. Constitution by taking video of people's actions and blasting them on social media. I just don't think it's justified to harm their entire image, because I think it's so much easier for a random person to just click upload with their finger and not have to think about the consequences of their actions. Blame shifting never solves problems either, and it's a lot harder to recover from a potential lifetime of consequences. And that is according to Alyssa Nadwormy from NPR. So thinking about all the forfeit college admission, social life, friends, professional connections, and all of your opportunities, that is what the consequences amount to. Holding people accountable for practicing unsafe measures while also partying, who attend an in-person class, may be understandable, but suspending 228 students, as Ohio State University did, is very extreme. That is according to Susan Srulaga from the Washington Post. For one, the vast majority of students are young and not likely to get majorly ill, and that's not to justify any rash behavior, but I'd say in the case of youthful college populations, the risk is about the same as getting the flu. There might be a few older professors and faculty members that are at a much higher risk, but as long as those professors and faculty members are safe themselves and follow procedures and guidelines, then why would they care about getting sick? Assuming that they get sick because these party people are not being responsible, then how are they getting sick if they're taking precautions themselves? In other words, if there's no way to prevent COVID-19 from getting to them, then why are these college campuses opening in the first place? It seems like they are willing to blame anybody but themselves. So I think that we should be holding these colleges accountable because they are opening and expecting students not to go party or socialize. I think that by holding them accountable means completely refunding the students that they've kicked out and reestablishing their record as perfect. And while you can't rebuild the social web that has been burned down, they can at least formally apologize in a public setting. And to me, that looks like naming off every individual that they have wronged. And I think that a much more pragmatic approach to holding this group of people accountable is to simply report them to the appropriate governing body if you think that they have violated any sort of statute or policy. Because treating these individuals as if they were evil and whose lives and opportunities should be forfeit, and that the whole world should know it was them, is quite unjustified, because all people want to do is release some tension. We are in this all together, and just because a college decides to take a risk and open up their grounds again for profit or for concerns of education does not mean they should blame the student when they made the conscionable choice and knew the risks. Going to a social event is probably the biggest rush anybody's had in the last 9 months, and because of this COVID-19 lockdown, we all need to be a bit more understanding and empathetic when people just want to feel normal again. Okay, and we should give thanks that we live in this democratic country because we have been given certain freedoms and rights, and that means even if we go to the lengths of using a social media platform like TikTok to showcase our negative behavior, then it must be allowed. Although I feel like the buzz around these stories are allowing intellectuals to hold valuable talks on COVID-19 with college students, I feel like the colleges are holding the student entirely responsible, and accountability is not being taken by them because they act politically and denounce the behavior of the student but not their own actions. and that is according to Sydney Mook at the Grand Forks Herald. The double-edged sword of the social media construct is causing more harm than good over time because it ruins the lives of people who seek it out and those who might even be relatively associated with the partying. For example, a roommate who was not in attendance but was expelled nonetheless. It's not just a slap on the wrist punishment for anybody, but an altering of their life forever over guidelines that are still not made clear by these institutions, states, or even our government. A lot of individuals have felt like they just shouldn't care because of so much conflicting information on the media, and I think that's why people have these attitudes while being filmed at these COVID parties, like they just don't care. It's not because they're evil or conspire to plague all of humanity. The ASCA's attorney Martha Compton's comments about maintaining a balance between individual rights and safety on campus tries to equate itself in the swiftness of that action to that of how they'd respond in the event of a sexual assault or possession of a firearm. However, based on the preponderance of evidence, I'd have to ultimately say that the consequences brought upon these young college students, who now have tarnished reputations due to these conflicting stories, misinformation, and lack of accountability, and our government and social media, are just not justified by the SCA's reaction, and students should be compensated effective immediately.